And greetings, saints of the Most High. Welcome to another installment of the Messianic Torah Observer. Rod Thomas coming to you on a crisp fall afternoon in the DFW. I want to thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to fellowship with me. And as always, beloved, is my hope, trust, and prayer that this installment of TMTO finds you, your families, and your fellowships well and blessed. As I am publishing this TMTO post, it is the 29th day of the 8th biblical month of Yah's sacred calendar year, which translates to Monday, December 2nd, 2024. And if you've been following this ministry for any length of time, you know that we are somewhat of sticklers as it relates to the Creator's reckoning of time. Then you may be acutely aware that this being the 29th day of the 8th biblical month puts us just a few hours from the start of the 9th biblical month. Or if you're tuning in or you're getting this post hours after the start of the next day, then we will have already started the 9th biblical month. Actually, prior to my recording this installment, we received notice that the 9th renewed moon had been successfully sighted in Yisra'el, which means we will begin the 9th month at sundown this evening. Again, the 29th of, this will be December 2nd at sundown. We'll begin the 9th month. Okay, getting my dates all jumbled up here. And we kind of had a little bit of a confusion because the folks that we get information on the sighting from originally posted that the sighting was unsuccessful. They weren't able to sight it. And so we had put off posting this installment of TMTO until tomorrow. But then we just received word about a half hour ago, maybe 40 minutes ago, that yes, there was an individual who did sight the renewed moon in Israel and actually forwarded a photo of the renewed moon that was sighted over there. So we're back on schedule. And we will begin the 9th month, Rosh Chodesh, this evening at sundown. And this is the reason I'm posting this installment of the Messianic Torah Observer today. Our Torah reading cycle actually factors in a parsha, or a Torah portion for each Rosh Chodesh, each new moon, new month day. Now, I've not done a teaching or a discussion on Rosh Chodesh in quite some time, so I'm led to post my thoughts and reflections on the Torah reading for the start of this 9th month. Our reading for today's discussion is found in Numbers, or Bamidbar, chapter 28, verses 1 through 15. As it specifically relates to Rosh Chodesh, the new month, the new moon, or the start of a new month on the Creator's calendar, our focus will be on verses 11 through 15. We find in the reading that Yehovah, through Moshe, is addressing the Sons of Yisra'el. The moon observance then, the new moon observance then, the Rosh Chodesh then, is directed to Bnei Yisrael, the sons of Israel, not to those who do not see themselves or consider themselves as sons of Yisrael, Bnei Yisrael, sons and daughters of Israel. Father instructs us in this parsha, or portion, to present unto him offerings, sacrifices made by fire. That is, sacrifices, offerings to be made at the tabernacle or temple upon the brazen altar. as an appeasement offering to Yah. The sacrifices, the offerings mentioned in this parsha, or this reading, are to be done at their appointed times. Verse 2 of chapter 28. So what I'm going to do is now read the 5 or 6 verses here, 5 verses of our portion, not the entire portion, but verses 11 through 15, so that we can kind of be all on the same page, no pun intended. Verse 11 reads, "And at the beginning of each of your months," beginning of each of your months then is Rosh Chodesh, Rosh being at the beginning, at the front of, Chodesh being moon or month, depending upon the context in which Chodesh is used. So he's saying at the beginning of each of your Chodesh, your Rosh Chodesh, you shall or you will present a burnt offering for Yehovah. 2 bulls and 1 ram, 7 male lambs without defect in their first year. Verse 12. And 3/10 of finely milled flour mixed with oil for a grain offering for each bull, and 2/10 of finely milled flour mixed with oil for a grain offering for the 1 ram. Verse 13. And 1/10 of finely milled flour mixed with oil as a grain offering for each male lamb, for a burnt offering of a fragrance of appeasement, an offering of fire for Yehovah. Verse 14. Their libations, or their drink offerings, will be half a liquid measure of wine for the bull, and 1/3 of a liquid measure of wine for the ram, and 1/4 of a liquid measure of wine for the male lamb. This is the burnt offering for every month every month for the months of the year. And lastly, verse 15, and 1 male goat as a sin offering for Yehovah. It will be offered in addition to the continual burnt offering and its libation. And that was the Lexham English Bible rendering. So what we have here in this reading is Father's instructions on presenting unto him offerings, sacrifices on the brazen altar in observance, in obedience to Rosh Chodesh, the start of the new month. And this is to be done in addition to the daily sacrifices that are offered. Now, there are some keywords and concepts to be gleaned from this reading that we should consider. We have here the idea within these 15 verses of a gift, an offering being rendered unto Yehovah. A gift in Hebrew is minha, and it relates to veneration, a thanksgiving, homage unto Yah. So there's this idea of honoring Yah, giving thanksgiving unto Yah when it comes to these offerings, especially the new moon offering each month. Then we have sacrifice. The sacrifices that are offered on the brazen altar is olah, which relates to that which is wholly burnt upon that brazen altar unto Yehovah. Of course, we have Chodesh, which refers to the moon or month. In this case, we're talking about Rosh Chodesh, a renewed moon that signals the start of a new month. Of course, every sacrifice, major series of sacrifices and offerings that are made addresses the issue of sin. sin, a sin offering, an expiation offering in the Hebrew, it's hatat. Hatat. And it's to remove the offense that the offerer is, or the offerer has, to remove that offense, to remove that sin, to expiate that sin. Hence, to purify. And this is illustrated and spoken about in Leviticus chapter 14, verse 49, chapter 14, verse 52, and Leviticus chapter 8, verse 15. The issue of sin, then, in relation to these offerings or sacrifices is to address defilement that derived from offenses committed by the Kohen Gadol or even the nation. Now, failure to address the defilements of the priest and the community would result in the sanctuary and the encampment being defiled. So there had to be an element of sin offerings mixed in with these overall, the panoply of offerings or sacrifices on Rosh Chodesh. The libation, nisek, or a drink offering, which I mentioned just a little earlier. And the offerings and sacrifices for Rosh Chodesh were in addition, as I said, to the offerings and sacrifices that were rendered by the priest each day. Now, the symbolism, the purpose behind these offerings, these sacrifices, and how do they relate, if at all, to Messianics today in their observance of Rosh Chodesh. I covered some of that in a previous posting 2 or 3 years ago, and if I get around to it, if I get the opportunity, I will post a link to that teaching for your benefit. Now, the very fact that Yah commands us, however, to render unto him sacrifices, the listed sacrifices and offerings, is indicative of the importance that he places on every Rosh Chodesh day. We no longer have a functioning tabernacle or temple, which, of course, negates our rendering sacrifices and offerings unto Jehovah. However, that lack of a functioning sanctioned temple or tabernacle in no way abrogates or nullifies the relevance or the sanctity of the day. And since we now worship Jehovah in spirit and in truth, any and all sacrifices and offerings are done in accordance with the leading of Father's Ruach HaKodesh, his Holy Spirit. Now, we've spoken about how we render unto Yah offerings and sacrifices unto Yah in the absence of a functioning tabernacle or temple. And we've done that in previous installments of this program. Sacrifices of praise unto Yah by the fruit of our lips rendered on Rosh Chodesh, rendered on the day. Serving others, doing good for others, and giving gifts to those ministries that feed us, just to name a few ways that we can render unto Yah sacrifices, offerings. Now, the feast or Rosh Chodesh, or head of the month, is held on the first day of each month. Numbers chapter 10, verse 10. And it involves the following activities on that day, according to Scripture. 1, it was celebrated by the blowing of shofars. Numbers chapter 10, verse 10, and Psalm chapter 81, verses 3 and 4. Secondly, sacrifices were offered on this day, as we just went through verses 11 through 15 of the 28th chapter of Numbers, as well as it is listed in Ezra chapter 3, verses 4 and 5. Now, according to the JPS Torah commentary, quote, the importance of the new moon is reflected in its sacrificial inventory. In other words, the number and types of offerings and sacrifices to be rendered on that day. In other words, there is obvious importance regarding the new moon or the new month day by evidence of the stipulated sacrifices and offerings that Father requires of us. If it wasn't an important day, we wouldn't be offering or rendering unto him sacrifices and offerings, right? Continuing, it equals, and this is a very interesting point that he makes, it equals the number of offerings on other important festivals and is greater than Ezekiel's prescription for this day, as stated in Ezekiel chapter 46, verses 6 and 7. Again, that was from the JPS Torah commentary. According to Baruch Levine in his A.B. Numbers commentary, quote, the rites for the new moon were considerably more elaborate than the Tamid or the Sabbath offerings, end quote. So again, Abba Yah viewed each Rosh Chodesh day or the feast of Rosh Chodesh as a very important day that his chosen, his elect ones must keep and observe. So I ask you, why aren't we honoring, why aren't we keeping every Rosh Chodesh as a set apart day? A third activity for Rosh Chodesh, or the festival of Rosh Chodesh, was a day of inquiring of Yah's messenger. It was routine for the nobles, the king, or other individuals or officials of Yisrael to inquire of prophets and teachers the things of Yah. 2 Kings chapter 4, verse 23. A fourth activity is worship services were conducted in the sanctuary. 2 Samuel chapter 20, verses 5 and 6, and verse 26. Isaiah chapter 1, verses 12 and 13, and Isaiah chapter 66, verse 23, Ezekiel chapter 46, verse 1. Another activity was that it was a time of entertainment, believe it or not. Yes, it wasn't all solemnity and seriousness. It provided for wholesome entertainment as well. It was a time of wholesome, decent entertainment, not watching crazy movies or TV shows or dancing and all that foolishness. It was a time of celebration and enjoyment. 1 Samuel chapter 20, verses 5 and 18. If you'd care to look up these passages, just to kind of help you to become aware of the importance of Rosh Chodesh each month. Another activity was it is to be observed with solemnity as well as joyfulness. Solemnity, 1 Chronicles 23, verse 31, and 2 Chronicles chapter 2, verse 4, 2 Chronicles chapter 8, verse 13, and 2 Chronicles chapter 31, verse 3. And last activity is that it was a sacred day of observance and even a day of rest. Isaiah chapter 1, verses 12 and 13, Hosea chapter 2, verse 13, and Amos chapter 8, verse 5. A sacred day of observance and a day of rest, almost like the weekly Sabbath and the mandated feast of Yah. Now, Rosh Chodesh, or the festival of Rosh Chodesh day, was restored to Israel after the captives returned to the land from Babylon, as noted in Ezra chapter 3, verse 5, and Nehemiah chapter 10, verse 33. Obviously, we made attempts. When I say we, Yisrael made attempts at observing the feast of Rosh Chodesh, although their observances, our observances, and the keeping of these days tended to be more mechanical or rote than from the heart, because their hearts were still evil. They were still being sinful, yet they would go through the motions of keeping Rosh Chodesh each month. And Yah saw through the foolishness, and he often rejected Yisrael's Rosh Chodesh celebrations and offerings and sacrifices. Isaiah chapter 1, beginning at verse 13. And it reads, the Lexham English Bible reads, verse 13, you must, this is Father talking. Father says, you must not continue to bring offerings of futility. Incense, it is an abomination to me. New moon and Sabbath, the calling of a convocation. I cannot endure iniquity in your solemn assembly. Verse 14, your new moons and your appointed festivals, my soul hates. They have become to me like a burden, Father says. And Father continues, I am not able to bear them. Again, this was Isaiah chapter 1, verse 13 and 14. So back in the day, before the Babylonian captivity, each month's new moon was declared by the Bet Din, which is the Jewish court. And it was declared in accordance with at least two credible witnesses, attesting that they'd sighted the renewed moon. Given that no ecclesiastical entity exists in the land of Yisrael today, those of us who keep the observational calendar rely on brethren in the land to report their observations, their sighting or failure to sight the renewed moon, as well as reporting on the maturity of the barley crop at the end of each biblical calendar year. So that's what I do every month. I keep an eye open for the notice of the searchers finding and sighting the renewed moon each month, which, of course, signals the start of the new month. Now, denominationalists condemn Rosh Chodesh observances, the new moon months, because they misinterpret the apostles' teachings on this issue. There's evidence in Colossians chapter 2, verse 16, and Galatians chapter 4, verse 10, where, remember, it says that let no man judge you on new moon celebrations and all. That's not what the apostle was saying. That he wasn't saying to the Colossians that you don't do new moon celebrations. He's saying if you do them, don't care what other people say. You don't allow people to judge you for your keeping of Rosh Chodesh. And the same thing applies to us Messianics who choose to keep Rosh Chodesh each month. Don't care what they say. Don't let them judge you. Get rid of them. Don't have anything to do with them. It's your relationship with Jehovah that matters, not them. You don't have a relationship with them. You don't have a covenant with them. Your covenant and relationship is with the Almighty. And when we can finally understand that and get that through our thick skulls and have that sink into our inner being, that our relationship is with Yah and our covenant relationship is with Yah, then we have more than halfway beat or won the battle. Because the battle is with ourselves. We fight ourselves because we don't want to be looked down upon. We don't want to be second guessed. We don't want to be judged. So we go with the crowd. Well, in this case, Rosh Chodesh is so important to Father that he stipulated what offerings he wanted. He is looking at how we keep Rosh Chodesh, which is important to him. And our ancient Israeli cousins did not do a good job in keeping him, so he got a little upset with them and says, I don't even bother doing it because you're going through the motions. Your heart isn't in it. But the apostle is telling the Colossians, his Colossian readers, don't let people judge you on your Sabbath keeping, on your Rosh Chodesh keeping, on the foods you eat, and so forth and so forth. And the denominationalists have taken that to mean don't do it. But that is wrong. And I've actually read commentaries that agree with that false teaching, that manipulation of Paul's writings. Hebrew rooters, and not too few Messianics, ignore each month's Rosh Chodesh for a lot of reasons, various and sundry reasons that include being ignorant of the importance of the day to Jehovah and to themselves. 2, their insistence in keeping the calculated Jewish calendar and rejection of the observational calendar puts Rosh Chodesh concerns out of sight, out of mind. It's just that way. Observationists are acutely aware about Rosh Chodesh because that's the whole point. We're waiting for the sighting of the new moon, and boom, when it's sighted, hey, we know at sunset we begin a sacred day, a set-apart day, a day important to Yah as well as important to us. So the observational calendar assists in that. But if you are keeping the calculated Jewish calendar, months go by and people don't really know except for the main feast day months, such as Passover and the Feast of Tabernacles, because they get a lot of notices and then they start paying attention to the calculated calendar. But for us, observationalists, we follow each month from the start to the finish. And that's why we are acutely aware of Rosh Chodesh each month. The third reason is the Tanakh doesn't specify Rosh Chodesh as being a set-apart or sacred day specifically. But there are numerous mentions of Rosh Chodesh throughout the Tanakh. And Yah's view of the day was so important to him that he stipulated what offerings and sacrifices, as we mentioned earlier, are to be made on this sacred day. Now, fortunately, several Jewish and Messianic assemblies or congregations faithfully observe Rosh Chodesh as a set apart or sacred day by hosting services and meals on the day. But regardless who is or who is not keeping Rosh Chodesh as a set-apart day unto Jehovah these days, Yah has declared that Rosh Chodesh will be a mandated set-apart day in the kingdom age, believe it or not. I refer you to Isaiah chapter 66, verse 23. You see, we're either going to do it Father's way or we're going to do it Father's way. Those who are stubborn on this and they refuse to keep Rosh Chodesh, if they're able to survive and make it to the kingdom age, make it into the kingdom, and that's entirely between that individual and Father, or I should say that individual and the judge, the righteous judge, Yeshua, they're going to have to keep Rosh Chodesh. Again, we're going to do it Father's way or we're going to do it Father's way. So in the kingdom age, it will be kept. As Isaiah chapter 66, verse 23. And this shall happen This is Father speaking through the prophet. From new moon to new moon, and from Sabbath to Sabbath, all flesh shall come to bow in worship before me, says Jehovah. So this is going to happen. This is going to happen. So again, my question that I posed earlier in this post, for those of us who do not keep or who do not observe the feast of Rosh Chodesh each calendar month, why are we not doing it? Why aren't we observing Rosh Chodesh each month? I mean, we'll keep the weekly Sabbaths and the annual feast, and we'll eat clean, but we either have no desire to do Rosh Chodesh each month, or we choose to remain ignorant of Rosh Chodesh's importance to our walk in the Messiah, and most importantly, its importance to our Heavenly Father. We just are not going to do it. It's funny because so many of us in this movement, in this faith movement, pledge how wonderful and how important it is for us to walk in Torah, but then there are aspects of the Torah walk that we choose not to do, like wearing tzitzits and keeping Rosh Chodesh, to name just two. We're going to either keep the whole Tanakh, the whole Torah, and the whole Torah is essentially the Tanakh. We're either going to keep it or we're not. And we don't pick and choose which ones suit our fancy. We do it. And we do it in spirit and in truth. Yeah, we can't keep certain things in Torah because we no longer have a functioning temple or tabernacle. And so a lot of people use that as an excuse not to do certain things like keep the mandated feast and so forth. But that's the whole point of us being under the renewed covenant, because now we are expected to keep Torah in spirit and in truth. We are expected to keep Torah. And that includes Rosh Chodesh each month, the feast of Rosh Chodesh. So I would humbly encourage you, if you're not already doing so, to prayerfully consider keeping and observing the feast of Rosh Chodesh each month. Now, not that you have to imitate or mirror my activities for your Rosh Chodesh observances, but just to give you an idea, Hillary and I welcome each Rosh Chodesh with the blowing of our shofars at sundown. I'm going to do that as soon as I post this this evening, in the start of the day. And throughout the day, we blow our shofar. So when sundown hits, you'll hear something that sounds like a shofar being blown from the Thomas home. And throughout the day, the next day, until the next sunset, we will be blowing it throughout the day as the Spirit leads. We'll just get up and start blowing throughout the day. We may have a special meal, and we may tune into Rosh Chodesh worship services that one of the ministries we follow and support online is conducting on that day. We often immerse ourselves in study of the Word on that day as well. So I've said all of this to say the Feast of Rosh Chodesh is a day that every Messianic should keep or observe. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. And I would just say, let us keep this and every succeeding Rosh Chodesh with joy, with our focus on Yeshua as our Redeemer and soon coming King. It's a wonderful time. It keeps us focused. It keeps us in sync with the Father and his calendar, his reckoning of time. And there's nothing better than that. So, beloved, Rosh Chodesh Tov. Have a wonderful Rosh Chodesh for the 9th month. The 9th month is about to hit us this evening at sunset. And I bid you take care until next time.